Yes. So I did a little upload. My voice sounded as I guess is it's going to sound to my voice in real life. Um, which is an interesting topic when you think about it because sound differently in your head than you do out loud. And this is something that most people learn when they're quite young. And I remember the first time that I actually heard myself on a tape, a cassette I had recorded on, and I was like, oh, that's not at all what I thought I sounded like. Cognitive dissonance for years. But now I quite enjoy my actual speaking voice, and I've heard other people like it too. So hopefully this appeals to you. If it doesn't, like I said, I don't care. I have an abundance of being able to speak. That's basically my mallet. But in your head, or at least in my head when I was younger. Oh, sorry. Stuff on my microphone. Get into some ASMR for you. Would you like it if I just whispered? Not my style, but I could if you wanted me to, but it's really not my thing. When I was a kid, I already thought I sounded like a dude in my head because when I listened to other females speaking, they perceptively to me had a higher pitch voice than I did. And I think that there are just people with higher pitch voices, and I'm not one of them unless I'm trying. And then I feel conflicted about trying because it's just like baby voice. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. Anyway, why are we good question. Specifically, why am I here this evening talking into this microphone? A couple of reasons. Huge fan of thrift stores, huge fan of thrifting, huge fan of finding musical instruments because I like to make some sounds. Well, what you're hearing plunk on this evening is my newly procured $7 Yamaha PSR 6. Came with a plug-in cable and everything. If I wanted to use batteries, it would take 6D batteries. I can't remember the last time I actually used any appliance that took D batteries. We just try and get smaller and more compact, and D batteries are really, you're lugging around a lot of weight with those. So I have this Yamaha. I also have this Casio. Let's try not to break everything in the process. I don't know. It's a Casio from 1995, and it appears as though it was given away as an award for a scholarship, commissary scholarship. I don't know. Don't know what it means, but I found the Casio at I call it the higher end thrift store, which is St. Vincent de Paul, like real charity or whatever. $15. And I could even play it there. It was plugged in. And I gave it a couple little plunkety plunks because, oh, yeah, it works. But there are people in the store and I wasn't going to just get weird on it. So I was like, hey, yeah, this works. $15. Got it. Bought it. And it came with a keyboard stand. So I thought I got a good deal. But then when I really started to experiment and play with the instrument, middle D was missing. Oh my God. I am so reliant on middle D, not middle C, middle D. I love D's and B flats. I started out playing music on a flute. So B flat scale was basically where I first started learning music, and I still don't know anything about music, but that's ingrained in me. So when I found out middle D didn't work on the Casio, I was really disappointed because I'd be playing stuff and I'd be like, and you're not there. And I felt like maybe I should just like color the key red or something to be like, just don't go there. Just ignore this key. But then I was like, no, come on. There are tutorials on the internet. Like, go to YouTube and figure out how to fix it. So I was like, yeah, let me do that. And then I looked and I was like, woo, takes a lot of screws to get that panel off. All right. All right. And it just took the right day for me to be like, I got the screwdriver. I got the canned air. I'm tearing this bitch apart. And I did. And I was like, okay, well, that's not fixing it. That's not fixing it. That's not fixing it. It appears as if there's just no compression happening onto the electronic part that should be making the sound. So in my jimmy rigging or whatever proper term these days is, MacGyvering of the situation, I pulled some of the cotton tips off of some Q-tips and packed them in there so that there could be a compression. And you know what? That shit worked for about 6 months, and then it didn't. And then I was just kind of like, I really don't want to pull all those screws out again. But I like what I have. But I was also getting disappointed in it because when recording, it was so obvious the noises that were happening with me just pressing the keys on the keyboard. And I was not impressed with that. So even though this Yamaha PSR6 appears to be probably around the same age, it's got a lighter, gentler, better key thing where it's not like I feel like I have to really press it. And the sound on it, I think, is actually better. Like, I don't know, when you're talking about an electric keyboard, it just to me sounds less MIDI, even though it still sounds very digital. And I was talking with a friend this evening about keyboards and their ages and stuff like that. And it kind of seemed like there was a long period of time, like 10 to 20 years, where keyboards really didn't change too much. There were subtle adaptations in the digital quality and all that, but there was a point, what I recall in history, okay? And I don't know how true this is, but there was a point in history when people were really wanting more of that authentic analog piano sound, and they wanted all of the other options within the digital platform to sound more realistic. And that's what catapulted keyboards into a new millennium. I don't know how much of that is true. This is just kind of what I remember and perceived. So I've had various things to plunk on in my life. We all start out with a baby piano, right? And I loved that thing. And then when I got upgraded, my family was not rich, so I didn't get the best of things, but I would get some cool stuff that was low grade. And I remember the first keyboard that I got was really quite small, probably about 12 inches in length. And I played the crap out of that, and it had a few other sound options that you could mess with, but I liked that. And then when like Talkboy came out and you could mess with your voice and sounds, we all loved that stuff. So going back to hearing your voice, yeah, I like it when I sound like a chipmunk, but when I hear myself sound like a lady man, I don't like that so much. Yet in my real life, I don't want to talk in a high-pitched voice that's unnatural to my own intonation and, just normal vocal range without pressure, unless I'm trying to be a character. Crap like that. The other reason why I'm here today, I'm fiddling with stuff. I don't know how good or bad that is. So it's really hard to tell the recording quality of live streaming. and I like the idea that it's just kind of a crapshoot, quite honestly. The other reason why I'm here is because I was having some really weird dreams this morning, as you do. And for whatever reason in my dream, Julia Louise Dreyfus from Seinfeld, she had a very basic bob haircut to about the chin, mid shoulder, like almost to the shoulder. And she was in a black suit and she had a name tag on that had her name on it. And in my dream, I ran into her and I was like, "What are you doing in my town?" Like, you're a comedic actor person. What are you doing in my town? She's like, "Actually, I quit acting and I am now a social worker." And I was blown away. I was like, "You're doing the good work. Congratulations. That's awesome." Like, in my dream, I was completely aware of the fact that social work represented something else and something bigger, and that somehow her attaching herself to that was like bigger, and it was representative of something that probably doesn't have anything to do with her other than last night I was trying to live stream this recording that I had made in 2017 where I went online and talked to this AI for like an hour named Louise Cypher, like Lucifer. And so that all folded over into my dream reality, but that wasn't the end of it. Is I have might be the only person watching right now. My friend Alessandro was in my dream and he said to me, "We're going home together." But also in the dream, I was aware that the home that he was talking about was not the physical location of where he actually lives, which is in Italy, not in North America. So this is not a realizable like thing. So then I get up in the morning and I go and I check my messages and all this stuff. And Alessandro has sent me some beautiful pictures of he's biking around in Italy. And um he sends me one specific picture where the message with it is where the red dot is where I live. I'm like, okay. Like, what kind of weird no time synchronicity is that? And then he mentioned some other things and also noted the amplification of synchronicity happening for him in his world currently. This is the stuff that gets me fired up. Like, I want to talk to people about this stuff because I know it's happening on the daily. And I know that the things that I've already posted are going to be hard to listen to because my voice is so crack-a-lack and not and schnocking. But the conversations that I get fired up about basically are where we observe these surprises that actually on a deeper level are not very surprising. It's just like on the surface level, we're experiencing them as surprising events, even though we know so much more than we know or give ourselves credit for. So tonight, when I was putting my grandmother to bed, I told her about the dream and then the message from Ale. And she was like, "I think you're psychic." And I'm like, "I think we all are." Like, this just happens to be something that I spend my time cultivating to some degree and not dismissing as happenstance or coincidence or whatever. And this then leads me to this show, Undone, that is on Amazon Prime. So this was recommended to me to watch. It has a lot of thematic and cinematic things that I have been drawn to in other types of media that I've liked in the past. But everything has been taken to the next level in the last couple of days by being able to bounce my own ideas off of Space Cadet on YouTube, um, his Twin Peaks breakdown. So instead of just watching this show or having it playing in the background, I'm actually paying attention to it more because it was brought up by the Space Cadet Twin Peaks discussion and this correlation of looping. So then, I sat down and I made a list of movies where there are loops happening, but they aren't necessarily linear, but it's time loops to learn lessons and stuff. So what I'm getting from Undone is that this is one of the most phenomenal pieces of pop media to come out in a long time. And since it's on the Prime service, not everybody is going to be able to see it unless they have some access to the service to see it or just get clips of it that are posted. This isn't TV in the sense of what you're used to. It is next level information being presented through something entertaining and thought-provoking. And I am loving it because there's something about the timing of it. There's something about the timing with it being put out and people being interested in it right now. And there's something interesting in when you watch it, the style that it's done in is like Waking Life. So it's like animation over real film. And so the sort of animated part of it or illustrated part of it is what sticks out first and most. But it's that real film behind it that gives it some depth and quality, like in the light and shadow specifically, where if you're paying attention to what the content actually is and what it means, this is great for us. The show is a representation of very real epiphanies that are happening for people in their crossover between real life and their spiritual reality or the spiritual reality. Like, it's not just theirs. There is a greater spiritual reality that we all are interacting with, but not necessarily acknowledging that we're interfacing. So for those of us who've known we've had one foot on earth and one foot in heaven or in the spiritual realm, it's interesting to watch this. It's interesting to watch it unfold in the sense of I'm only on like the 6th episode or whatever. But I can't binge this in a way that I've binged other things. I have to think about this. I have to think about this because it's so relatable. And there's this fine line where I'm not even through with it. And they're introducing these ideas that it's people with mental, quote unquote, mental illness who act this way that are in between worlds. And I know how farcical that is just on the level that they've been doing that to people forever who don't fall in line with normality. And instead of asking the question of what is your experience and how can that be relatable or important, it's just like, you're crazy, let's shut you up and give you drugs and lock you away, or ignore what you say and give you pills and pretend that maybe you can be normal. I don't want to be normal. I don't want to be normal at all. Like, that seems depressing. I grew some tomatoes this summer, some of them from seed, some of them from a gifted plant. And one plant, actually, I bought a tomato and I opened it, you cut it open, and there was already a sprout growing from one of the seeds inside of the tomato. So I was like, yo, I'm planting you. So I had 3 tomato plants, all from different sources. And the first tomato that I grew was the weirdest looking tomato. It just, like, did not have a normal tomato shape, but you know what it does look like? It looks like a biological heart in a person, and it fits in the palm of my hand so very perfectly. And I feel like this is some sort of weird representation of my own heart and my own heartbreak and the desire to heal it and externalize it and examine it. And it sounds pretty creepy. If I'm going to eat this tomato, maybe I should just save it and save the seeds and I'll grow heart tomatoes. But that happened today in the sense that I had plucked this tomato about a week ago or so, a few days, and I popped it in a bag with a banana because it was green when I took it. Because we're getting close to that frost point. It's gonna happen, in the middle of the night when nobody's looking. I'm just gathering my shiny tomatoes and I'm gonna ripe them inside. And so this was the first one, the biggest one, the pride and joy of the flock. And with all this stuff with the dream and going home and a heart-shaped tomato, like it's hard to talk about. Obviously, it's not hard to talk about because I'm talking about it, but to me, all of these things are connected. It's not up for question. In the process of how I perceive the world, they aren't separate. And so when I'm watching this show where it's connecting dots that are hard for people who can't look that direction for whatever reason, um, it just seems weird to me that they'll find it entertaining and they'll like the idea of it, or maybe they'll even wish that that was them or something. But they could ostracize the people in their life who actually are going through experiences similar to that and treat them as if they're totally weirdo, people, and that they need some sort of help. When those people are probably also thinking to themselves, no, I don't need help. You do, because you can't see what's happening. You aren't experiencing the full or even a bigger threshold of potential in all of this connection that's happening. How have people gone so long in the world thinking that, like, things aren't connected? Who told you that? And why would you take it at face value in the sense that through observation, you can see how many things are connected that are seemingly unconnected, right? You can go to the most basic of basics, right? Water, air. Anything that's living is utilizing water and air. Anything that has been biological, organic material, wood, trees, plants, whatever, even metal, there was something about water and oxygen that helps it get to where it gets to be a lampstand or a bottle of solvent. I'm just looking at stuff around me, right? It all takes water and air. We have that in common. And then everything has a vibrational imprint and a vibrational effect into an environment. So, what are we doing telling children or each other that nothing is connected and that it's coincidental? Go fuck yourself. That's my answer to that. Uh, I think that there are so many people in the world who want the rest of everybody to admit how connected everything is so that we can move on. You know what I'm saying? When we have people who are in denial of the multidimensional reality that exists within us and outside of us and through us and about us, when that is ignored and then focus is put on these petty bullshit items that we can control in our lives, we are missing out so much on the quote unquote bigger picture. And how do we get to the bigger picture? We have to realize it's all friggin' connected. Nothing is mutually exclusive at all. And so, we have all these compartmentalized systems that try and get people to put their extreme focus in certain little places and ignore the rest of what's happening around them. Our government has really operated that way for a very long time, where um, there are so many departments, so many people. Like people like tell me, well, conspiracies aren't real because how could they keep a secret like that? Compartmentalization. You only tell people what they need to know, and you get them fired up or fixated enough, just enough to not think about what's right outside their door, their perimeter, or for the people who are not working for the more compartmentalization department, you try and get them to fear going outside of their own door to see what's there. So, a fear tactic on one level for the common civilian, and then a tactic of focus, productivity, and perhaps reward if you stay in your department and work hard enough. That's so gross, dude. Like, I am about to light a cigarette, and I think that what the government does in compartmentalization and has for a very long time to hide things is grosser than the cigarette I'm about to smoke, which was also propaganda to kill people. See, there are connections that are so gross that I'd love to be perfect. I'd love to say this doesn't bother me, but it does. It does. So what am I going to do about it? I'm going to do about it like I've done for a long time. And I haven't seen great rewards from it necessarily in the sense of what other people might define as success or productivity or whatever. I'm just going to talk about it. That's it. You can involve yourself if you want or not. I don't care. But I do care on the level that for a long time I've felt like this needs to happen, and the pessimistic, or yeah, I guess it's pessimistic, part of me thinks it's a pipe dream. But I know that when I'm sitting here online right now talking for 29 minutes and 25 seconds, uh, I'm disrupting some flow of energy in the universe. And it's not a pipe dream. It's just it's not even just a weird idea. It's when you realize everything's connected, that me choosing to sit down and do this, especially in a purposeful, intentioned way, I'm messing with something. And some people call it chaos magic. I don't necessarily think that I call it that, but it disrupts the frequency of what is normal. Because at this point, this is like renew to me. So this is not in my normal pattern these days to be going on to YouTube and talking into a microphone with a sticker over my camera. That's not been normal as of recently. So by doing this, I'm stepping out of my own patterns. And when I step out of my own patterns to some degree, it creates weird ripple effects. But that's the same with everyone. Anytime you step out of a normal pattern, even on just like your average normal day, say you're a working mom with a couple of kids and a working husband, and your husband gets to work earlier than you do, and you take the kids and drop them off at school, and then you go to work. But what happens when there's a day when your kid is sick, one of your kids is sick, and you don't have a sitter, or your list of sitters doesn't answer, and you have to call in sick to work to stay at home to watch your kid. But then you also have to put that sick kid in your car just so you can drive the other kid to school. Or you could decide, you're both just staying home today. We're not doing this. These are all options, right? Society would tell you that there is probably the most responsible way of dealing with that situation. But probably as a parent, I'd be like, all right, we're all at home today. We're all taking an off day. Let's rest. Let's chill out. Let's try and feel better tomorrow, man. If you already have to call in sick to your job because you're taking care of your sick kid, then why not treat the whole day as like, maybe we needed a break? Maybe that's what it's telling you. But certain people would get upset because it upsets the normal cycle and schedule. Is it really that worth getting upset about? But what about money? What about the paycheck? What about this and that? I don't know, man. What I do know is that we get thrown curveballs all the time, and it's asking us to observe and respond accordingly. But we're not necessarily taught how to respond accordingly. We don't have a lot of like good role models for that kind of stuff. So we don't know what it looks like. We only know what we've been told and what we didn't like and what did or didn't work for us when we were at other points in our life, right? It's a big conversation. And with this Undone show, it's talking about time loops. And I mentioned that I felt like I'm in a time loop. I wrote down a list of movies that I felt were time loop related that are not dependent on linear time. But the first one that came up for me that was the most obvious was Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. And I don't like golf. I don't even know why I watched that movie so many times, other than I do like Bill Murray, but it's not a fantastic movie. I think it was because Andie MacDowell spells her name Andie. Andie, yeah. And Mandy, Mandie. I think that might have been the biggest draw for me to watch that film, which is such a dumb reason in retrospect. But the time looping thing, it's like he wants a certain outcome, but he has to keep reliving his mistakes over and over and over again until he realizes, oh, wait, I have to change my behavior to get to the outcome that I want. And why Undone is so perfectly timed is people are starting to realize that reincarnation cycles are starting to get incredibly condensed. So, where people are like, oh, maybe you were once an ant or a flower or a buffalo or a fly that only lived for a day. people's lives are accelerated, so they're living many lives in one lifetime. So, what's the next step? The next step is to realize that some of the outcomes in our life is a byproduct of making the same mistakes over and over and over again, and not changing, and also vice versa. So, for instance, everybody knows them. Everybody knows somebody who's like um, somehow transformed themselves into a super guru, and they give you beautiful Instagram photos, and they are super fit, and they have good skin, and they sell you knowledge. I'm not going to show you my face so much. I'm just going to sit here and talk to you and say that all the stuff that they're telling you, they're fluffing it up, trying to impress themselves and get you to buy into it so that they feel better. I mean, that's what I get from it. They made some different decisions, which led them to outcomes which could be defined as success, depending on your definition of success. But I'm sorry, when people I thought were friends at one point in time just want to sell me products, or uh like have me pay for the secrets of the universe or whatever, no, thanks. I no. I've got it. And so do you. That's what I think. I think we all have it in ourselves. We all don't have necessarily the ingrained interest to go there and think about it and get in those spaces and places. And maybe it is more appealing to certain personalities to explore that if they have a pretty face attached to it, and going along with the old trope of you get what you pay for, right? So maybe if you invest that $100 in that lecture, that your life is going to completely change. Well, you've made a step in a different direction because you've done something different than you've done before, but it doesn't have to cost you money to do something different in your life. You can go volunteer, you can make up some sort of kind, interesting thing to do to involve yourself with time. Like, and when I live in this Groundhog Day, every day I'm just like, what can I do in myself that can basically change the timeline so that people can see through the fiction of money and have a thirst for knowing and knowledge and truth without having a price tag attached to it. It's ridiculous. The whole thing with occulted just means it's hidden, and the apocalypse is the unveiling. In the middle of all this, I'm just like, somebody inserted money in the exchange of spirit and physicality, and it's not legit. It's totally not legit. And we're seeing this with the breakdown of a lot of these groups who've been trafficking humans. And anybody who's followed along long enough with the curiosity of why we use money in the Federal Reserve and the fiction of fiat will realize that this isn't normal. This isn't organic. This is completely an inserted program, which is so tied to the function of our daily lives that it's going to be really hard for people to face it, just like it's really hard for people to face the fact that there's human trafficking and pedophilia. And then people are going to flip out even more when they realize, oh yeah, they're like, cannibalism is a real thing for fun for some people. What the fuck? Right? I'm already aware of this stuff and have been for a very long time. And many people that I know that I communicate with online mostly are aware of these things, but my family, if I talk about this stuff, it's not, they look at me like a crazy person. It's a slow leak and a slow disclosure, but there's a reason why people, um, like me, like us, see this stuff and are uncomfortable with it, but also so uncomfortable with it that they're looking at it and dealing with the uncomfortable and then asking themselves, how can I personally have an impact on changing whatever appears to be the outcome with this? Um, I think uh, it's already been said. It's won. We've won already. That there's no chance that this evil thing is gonna win this time. That we're at the ends of things, and I feel that is supported and positive within the dream of having Alessandro say, "We're going to go home together," and having a tomato like a heart. I think that those are good signs. I don't know. For me, they're positive. But the thing about it is that doesn't necessarily mean that tomorrow when I wake up, I'm gonna be in utopia, right? It might be nice, but these are still just little small mile markers on a greater path. They're like, remember this, remember that. Don't forget. It's gonna help you in the long run. Instead of fixating on some other stuff that's frustrating and just brings out the worst in our personalities, or specifically my personality. I'm really trying to work on that. Like I do not like sounding like a bitchy person. It is the worst. It's the worst to hear yourself talk and be like, you sound gross right now, dude. You just don't sound like a good person because you sound like a whiny bitch. And you know, we all got our stuff to work on. That's mine, is trying to calm down in these moments. Then we go back to Undone. I'm watching this show and it is very uh effectively telling me exactly how to deal with that, because they have the truth in plain sight thing. So somebody else can watch that just as entertainment, but what I'm seeing is, oh man, somebody did a drop of information in um video form, in creative video format, but pay attention to what's happening here, because these are tools that you are going to need with what's happening. I think even with all the evil in the world and stuff, since source is one and everything plays a role in the interconnectedness, and that there is the rule that truth in plain sight, truth in front of your face, it's for those who see, those who hear, right? All these biblical tropes. The beautiful thing about it is, without some of these really derelict human people in the mix, we wouldn't be where we're at today. It's been their grossness that has woken so many people up to look at the greater construct and how they've been involved in it without even realizing it. Oh, I just think it's beautiful. And I don't want to be caught on some short end of the stick in saying that as gross as things are and have been, we have to appreciate it in the greater construct overall. And it's freaking weird and uncomfortable to say because I think we all want to have a demon and a thing to hate. But it's hard to when we realize that it's all just different stages of development. And you don't get from one place to another in any stage of development if you don't have a helping hand or somebody who pushes you flat on your face. So, the world's weird, man. World is weird. Let's listen to this a little bit. I just want to play with it. You can tune away or not. I don't care. What's 44? Electric bass. Come on. 25 is Alpenhorn. Ooh. Yummy, 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 Yamaha, yummy. That's it. That's all I've got. 47 minutes, 41 seconds, 42 seconds, 43 seconds. Oh, you want me to count for you more? Shall I do it in whispers, ASMR? Yeah, I just snorted because I do that sometimes. It's science. Nasal cavities. It's just so fun to be live. Even if you're not really talking to anybody in particular. And I love it. I just love it. I have so many recordings in my phone because when the spirit wants to speak, it definitely doesn't leave me alone. So let's see here. This has been the weirdness for tonight. I'm Cram Snicken Snarf. Have a wonderful evening, sweet dreams, and good night.